Hey everyone, Sam here with a quick update. This isn't your typical episode, so I want to kick this off with a couple of notes. So firstly, if this is the first episode of Howling Salt Mine you've ever listened to, if this is the first thing of ours you're downloading and listening to, even if it's the second or third thing, I would recommend that you listen to other episodes. We have tons of amazing podcast episodes out there talking about salty stories, laughing, having a good time. This mini episode here, it kind of has a different vibe to it and is more of like a personal update for me. So this probably isn't the first impression of the podcast you want. So go elsewhere, get out of here, go listen to something else, come back to this when you're ready. Second, this episode has a content warning. This is a mature rated show, I guess, because we say fuck a lot and make dick jokes. But this episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about some heavy subjects. I'm going to be talking about death, going to be talking about grieving, and I'm going to talk about the loss of a child. So this is pretty heavy, kind of goes without saying. But this might not be the episode you want to listen to on your commute into work, for example. This is probably going to be a pretty short one, so I would like people to listen to this, and I do hope a lot of you out there do. But, just be mindful for yourself and for your own mental health and listening to this in the right setting and things like that. Take care of yourself. I mean, this is a heavy subject, so, you don't want to be walking into work after having a big cry in the car. Okay, so if you're still with me, you may have guessed from the content warning that this mini episode is going to be an update on my personal life regarding the loss of my daughter, Audrey. My wife and I were expecting to have our first child, our daughter, and everything was great. My wife was healthy, incredibly low-risk pregnancy. Our baby was totally healthy. Audrey was completely healthy and perfect. Had a doctor's appointment Friday before my wife went into labor, and everything was totally fine. And on the second day of labor, April 12th, my wife just wasn't really feeling the baby anymore. Decreased fetal movement is what they call it. And we talked to our doctor and went in and found that they couldn't find the heartbeat. They couldn't hear a heartbeat. So this was a full term loss. Basically, Audrey was ready to be born, perfectly healthy, ready to come, but something went wrong in that last day or so in the early labor process, and she didn't make it. So, and we still don't know what went wrong, and we probably won't. In most of the cases where something this rare happens with a full term stillbirth, they generally don't know what happened. It was probably the worst day of my life so far. It's a little grim. But yeah, it was the worst day of my life, easily. And, my wife and I were obviously devastated. This is not what any new parent expects to happen. I don't think this is what any parent expects to happen at all. This is going to be a little weird and rambly because this is kind of a hard thing to talk about, but I kind of want to talk about why I'm making this. Because some of you might be like, what's going on here? Why are you doing this? So the first reason is because I want to talk about Audrey. She is my daughter. I'm still a father, and I love my daughter. And even though I can't hold her right now and I can't be the parent that I want to be, I still am a parent. And, we still had a child. Second, when you're doing a weekly podcast, a sort of like meta narrative emerges about the lives, like the personal lives of the hosts, like you guys have heard when we go on vacations, might get this big canoe trip, you're going to hear later this year when Tony gets married. And you've probably also heard me talk about getting ready for paternity leave, backlogging episodes, my excitement to become a dad, all that kind of stuff. So when this happened, I did make a social media post about losing Audrey a couple days after it happened, mostly just to get the word out. Because again, all of our listeners had known I've been looking forward to this. Tons of our friends in the magic community knew that I was going to become a dad and have Audrey, and all of, I did a similar post for friends and family just on like my personal accounts because everybody knew and was super excited. So, that post exists out there and some people may see it, but some people might not see it. So I do think that there needs to be like something in the podcast feed that kind of talks about this. And I don't think it's appropriate to have like a, early episode ramble pre-catch-up kind of thing and chit-chat about this, about something so heavy, and then like get into salty stories like we normally do. Like that's not really the tone that we want for like our typical episodes. And I just think it's kind of like not really the right forum for that. Obviously I haven't been on the last couple episodes, and some of you out there may think that I'm on paternity leave. So I think that this was important to put out there. The truth is that I've kind of been on a hiatus from the show for, I think now it's about like 5 or 6 weeks since this happened. And Tony and Mike have been amazing, keeping things running. A couple hiccups here and there, but they're crushing it, and they've been super supportive and just amazing friends through this whole thing. So I am coming back. I'm coming back to the show. This is something that I love. Since having started it, I don't think I could ever be without it. So I'll be back soon. And what else? So there is a third reason I wanted to share this, and it's because sharing these types of stories, I think it's important as like, kind of like for the greater good. I think being vulnerable with other people with things that are uncomfortable, like mental health or tragic loss or anything like that, I think it's empowering for other people to hear you talk about it. You listening right now, you may have experienced a similar loss, or maybe you know somebody who's going through this, or a family member or a friend or an acquaintance or something like that, somebody you work with. Who knows? Like, it's not that uncommon to have miscarriage. Stillbirth, what we experienced with Audrey, is a little bit more uncommon, but these things do happen. So I want to put this out there so people know that they're not alone, I guess. Also, I just think it's important to be vulnerable. I think it's a strength to be emotionally vulnerable with other people. And if I have this big podcast, well, it's not that big, but if I have this podcast, this medium-sized podcast, and, a platform to do this, and I'm not taking this opportunity to talk about this and talk about my personal experience with losing my daughter, then, I'm not really walking the walk, or talking the talk here. So, okay. So all that stuff out of the way. First of all, I want to say that I'm doing okay. We still have ups and downs every day, but the downs are becoming less frequent and the ups are becoming more frequent. My wife is amazing. She's an incredibly powerful, wonderful person. She's my best friend. She's the love of my life. And, navigating this with her has brought us even closer than we were before. We really wanted to expand our family, of course. I mean, we've been married for a long time now, and we're so excited for that chapter of our lives, and knew that Audrey would bring us closer together. And this isn't the way that we thought Audrey would bring us closer together, but it is kind of the situation that we're in. So we're making the best of it. We both took a couple months off of work. So that has been really invaluable for this whole process, just being able to spend time together and heal together and, ride the grief together. Before losing Audrey, my wife and I had 2 miscarriages previously, and those were tragic in their own right. Of course, those were very hard to go through, but it did kind of prepare us a little bit for losing Audrey as much as you can be prepared for something like that. Mostly in that, like, we have already experienced a traumatic loss of a child, and kind of loss of that future potential is really what it is. So navigating this, although very different and extremely hard in its own right, we've done like couples therapy and stuff to get through some of those prior things. So we have good tools coming into this situation, which has really helped. It also, doesn't hurt that we are head over heels in love with each other. So that's always useful. I just kind of want to thank everybody for the outpouring of love that we've received. It has been incredibly humbling and just a comfort through this whole thing. With those social media posts we did, there was kind of this outpouring of support from people. And one of the things that we did, which my wife included in our note, which was very clever, was saying that we are seeking personal connection during our loss and condolences and things like that. Because sometimes I think with losses like this, people don't know what to do. And I think some people are like, oh, I'll leave them alone or I won't mention it and stuff like that. And, for us, that was kind of the opposite. Like with our 2 previous miscarriages, we kind of did that in secrecy. People didn't know that my wife was pregnant yet, except for like a few close family members. So when we went through it, it was a very private thing and it was really hard. But with Audrey, everybody knew that we were pregnant, all of our friends and coworkers and things like that. And, to have that loss be much more public was actually very strengthening, because it opened up this door for other people to show us some love and, give us some positivity and some support. But I think the most important thing it did was it allowed other people who had similar losses an avenue to reach out to us. And, we had friends, family members, people we didn't even know reach out to us. And of course, tons of the prospectors, people on the Patreon were reaching out, other podcast listeners, other friends in the magic community who had gone through a similar loss, whether it was a stillbirth or a miscarriage. These are all traumatic losses of a child, and it's all very hard to go through. So feeling like you're not alone in that was huge. It's just crazy to think about the support that we got in that first week, all the letters and care packages and food that were brought to us from friends, coworkers, people in our communities, people in the magic community. And again, the patrons of the podcast were amazing. It's kind of hard to say, I guess humbling. I already said it, but that's kind of the right word here. It's really humbling to be a part of a community and to have had a hand in creating that community and bringing it together, and then just feel like this amazing outpouring of love and support and positivity from that same community. Every single message we got, even if it was just a simple, I'm sorry for your loss or my condolences, every single message we got, I read, and I read it with my wife. And, most of them made us cry because they were just so sweet, Other people have gone through this. Other people will keep going through this. This kind of the side of like the pregnancy journey that you don't always see. If you do ever experience something like this, my DMs are open. I would be more than happy to talk to you about it, give you a shoulder to cry on, whatever. Open door policy when it comes to that stuff. My wife's doctor said it today. This is the exclusive club that you don't want to be a part of, but once you're in it, you're in it. There's a really awesome book that's been helping us process the grief called Bearing the Unbearable by Joanne Cacciatore. She lost her daughter, another tragic loss, and, talks about dealing with that and going through it. And she's since gone on to become a traumatic loss life coach and, helping people through losses, like people lose their children in school shootings and people who, it has a lot to do with child loss, but there are so many others. And that book has just been amazing. And it's kind of right there in the title, Bearing the Unbearable. It's so unbearable to go through a loss like this, but at the same time, you do have to go through it. And there's no real trick to it. You just do it, like how do you come back from something like this? You just do. You just go through it day to day and, try to be the best person you can be and support your loved ones. And it does kind of give you a change in perspective. But that title is interesting because not only are we bearing what is unbearable, we are also the bearers of the unbearable. So kind of a little double meaning there in that at this point in my life now, I'm somebody who has experienced this, and I will meet people in the future who are currently going through this. And I will, be an unfortunate member of this club to say, hey, I have some insight there. I can help you. I know what this is like. So I'd like to add that anybody who has gone through this or is going through something like this, the few if I can provide some guidance or insight into how to navigate traumatic loss, first of all, I would say that grief is like an ocean. You can get swallowed up by these big crashing waves, or you can get really good at surfing and kind of ride the grief. You know, when it comes, you experience the grief, and when it goes away, allow yourself to experience joy, allow yourself to take a break from the grief and live a bit of a, normal, or as normal as you can get, a normal day-to-day life. Also share your grief. I found it incredibly empowering to share Audrey's story and my wife and my story of loss with other people. And I think it's something where the more you share these types of things, the more other people will recognize that it's safe to talk about this stuff. Because I think it's just something that people don't talk about, or they kind of like bury it down, or especially as men, we try to like tough it out and all that kind of stupid shit. And honestly, being vulnerable with yourself and with other people and experiencing the grief fully is, one, going to help you heal. And two, it's very cathartic to do that. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say, but just thanks again to everybody, every single note, all the support, people texting me, checking in, DMing me, bringing me food, checking in with me and my wife. Just the support has been very, very humbling and amazing. I'm 100% coming back to the podcast. You'll hear me later this week. After going through this, I already loved doing the Howling Soul Man podcast. I already loved the community that we had created here. But after going through this, I see that this is really something special. And, maybe that's a cliche thing to say about like a community like this, but man, I feel it in my heart. Like it is just so cool to be a part of, and just some amazing, amazing people. So yeah, that's it. If you got this far, I appreciate you sticking with me and listening to this. And, you won't hear this, but even if you only listen to the first minute or so of this, I appreciate that too. This isn't intended to be our most downloaded episode. This is just supposed to be kind of out there, just to give everybody an update on where I'm at. So thanks everybody. I love you all. And really, again, just appreciate all of the love and support that my wife and I have received after losing Audrey. And, it's very special. So thank you. Thank you so much.